guys, I hope you're doing well. I have had quite a few requests to do some videos or a little mini series on kind of what I do to wake my plants up in the spring, so to speak, my succulents and other plants, but succulents in particular. And so I am doing something right now that is has to do with waking them up, and so I thought, you know what, I will just show you guys what that is. And I've talked about doing a video on fertilizers, a more in-depth video on fertilizers and going into organic versus inorganic and different types and why you might want to use one versus the other, and why succulents are a little bit different than a lot of other plants, and why over-fertilization can hurt them really quickly. But this video is not going to go into all of that. This is just one of the methods that I use, and that is to make plant teas, herbal teas in particular. But a lot of what we consider herbs, a lot of people would just consider weeds. So weed tea, some people call it, plant tea, herb tea. For most of, let's see, how long has it been now? Well, the better part of 20 years at least. Yeah, about 20 years exactly. I've had a massive herb garden most of that time, and at one property or another. And so when you have lots and lots of herbs, you have lots and lots of available material to harvest. This here is mint, apple mint in particular is what's on top here. And so I harvest it, and I make a lot of different things with these dried herbs of various and sundry types. However, I don't always use all of the herbs that I've harvested. And once they reach about 2 or 3 years old, I almost always have more crops of whatever it was coming on. And there's really no reason to save the older stuff. And while it does slowly lose some of its medicinal properties if you're using it medicinally, which usually I am, it for this particular purpose, it's still got a lot of really good nutrients still in it, and that's what we're using this for. That top part was all mint, and after that, right now I'm using, this is more of a tea of, an opportunistic tea, I'll call it. I have just herbs that I'm needing to use up, like I was talking about, that have I've had for a few years, and I just want to clean out my cupboard. I also had a store for quite a lot of years, and found little individually packaged, I sold bulk herbs and teas, and found a tub of individually packaged herbs. And so I'm just using some random ones that I might not purposefully use otherwise, but they all contain great nutrients, so it's going to be great. The ones I do choose to use purposefully usually that are in this are dandelion, horsetail has some great calcium and magnesium, and usually I would use some nettle, but I'm not using any nettle in this particular batch just because I don't have any that I want to use up. But this also has rooibos, which is an African herb that is super rich in minerals. And let's see what else is in here. There's some willow bark, horsetail, peppermint, lobelia, I think maybe cat's claw, yep, and some cat's claw. All of those are pretty mineral and nutrient dense plants. I'm trying to get this lid open. And then chamomile. Chamomile has some great antifungal properties. And so I'm adding this in. I'm not using all of this jar that I have up because I want to save some for a tea that I make for seedlings to help them not hopefully get fungal infections, and it's worked pretty great in the past, but I want to try it on some mesime seeds this spring, hopefully. So anyways, the idea of this is of making a tea for your plants. You don't have to boil water. You can do that, but you don't have to. We usually just add room temperature water and let it soak for at least 3 days. And I am also adding molasses in with it. Pardon me, I'm going to walk over here and grab my jugs of water. I'm using rainwater. Our rainwater here is slightly acidic, and it does help extract a little bit better than our well water, the plants. And so the idea is basically that this is going to kind of ferment, and the bacteria are going to start breaking this down and making these nutrients really, really accessible in this soup, which will strain off all of the herbs. But this liquid that's left behind, the tea, will be rich in nutrients. And this is just a really great, gentle, but accessible at the same time, nutritional drink, so to speak, for succulents. And you don't have to worry about it being too strong or anything like that, because like you do with other commercial fertilizers. Sorry, my brain just totally went on a tangent there, and I wasn't quite along for the whole ride. I was just grabbing the molasses. I'm just adding, this is just regular, the glare, just regular. This is Briar Rabbit molasses. It's making me hungry. I grew up eating molasses and cornbread. And I'm just gonna add about a tablespoon, maybe just a little bit more because it's cold. And this just gives the bacteria a boost and help them start to get to brooding in here. And I'm just adding a little bit of warm water to this molasses from our well, just to dissolve it, and then I'll use the rest will be rainwater. And this is great for all kinds of plants, not just succulents. I use it in my garden. I used to a lot. We haven't had a big garden here yet, so I've mostly only used it on indoor plants here. But it's a great, great, great solution to make if you have extra. All right, so I just dissolved this molasses with a little bit of water, and I'm gonna add that in. But this is a really great solution to make for your plants if you have extra green material. So you can use grass clippings, you can use all the weeds that you pull from your flower bed, you can use anything like that. And most of those, like dandelion, like nettle, are really nutrient dense plants and will actually make a fantastic tea for your plants. Now this solution right here smells amazing, you guys. It smells like, well, it's just the combination. It smells like an herbal tincture that I make, but it's the combination of mint and lobelia and chamomile, which is a sweet honey-like smell. And then the horsetail is just really, really mild and slightly grassy, and it really smells good. And I can, if you guys are interested, I can totally make a more exact recipe. If you're wanting to buy specific plants, if you're wanting to know, which specific dried herbs that you could buy to make your plant some organic tea like this. But it really, really works well with just whatever you have. If you have any, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily have a whole bunch of extra plant material sitting around like this, but they're outdoors. It's really, really easy to find a lot of leaves and weeds, etc. To do. And while you're not exactly as sure about what kind of nutrients you're getting, it's still a great gonna be a great solution for your plants. So when you're choosing your herbs and adding them, you know, the specific ones that you want, you can say, well, you know, I was seeing some signs of a magnesium or a calcium deficiency, so I'm going to use, you know, dandelion and, you know, nettle and specific ones for that, which you can totally do. And if you guys are interested in hearing more about which specific herbs in here or otherwise that you could use have different nutrients and when you might want to use them, I can totally chat about that in another video. The other thing you can do is kind of mix this with a compost tea, which is more just scraps. And so you could take, for example, I have just a bowl here of just vegetable scraps, you know, like lettuce and apple, and these are a whole bunch of lime peels that we had juiced and zested. And you could add those into here. It's going to make it ferment a bit more. It's going to get more moldy and smelly. Doesn't that sound fantastic? But really, it is fantastic because the bacteria that are causing the mold and the fungus growth are what's breaking down the nutrients in the plant material and making it accessible once again for your plants to reabsorb. So it's really a lot more readily available. So as sad as it is to kind of think you want it to be moldy and yucky, that is kind of what you want. However, because it's early spring here, I don't want my house to be stinky and yucky. I don't want a full-blown, really, really nasty batch this time. I just want some good good fermentation and it to smell kind of like slightly, just a slightly off herbal tea, you know, just almost slightly vinegar touch to an herbal tea is what I'm going for, because I don't want a really strong tea this early in the spring when I can't open the windows and air everything out. But if these guys were outdoors, I would be dumping all of these apple cores and everything in here, and that would be beautiful, and it would just ferment right up and be fantastic. But later on in the season, when they go outside and the windows are all open, etc., I will totally be doing more. But so back to what I started out with, I've been asked to show what I do to kind of wake my plants up in the first thing in the spring. This is one of the things that I like to do and that I have done for quite a long time. And that is just to give them a really nice light drink of an herbal tea that is set and fermented for at least 3 days. If in the really cool weather, this is going to sit out in the garage, and so if it's really cool the next 3 days, and this is showing no signs of any kind of fermentation, I will leave it longer. Sometimes when it's cold, it just takes a little bit longer. But if it's looking good, then I'll go ahead and strain it off after 3 days. I'm going to add a couple more gallons of water to this. But this is a great gentle drink first thing in the spring when it's kind of like, well, I think they're starting to wake up, some of them, but some of them really aren't showing signs yet. You don't want to douse them with a really nitrogen heavy synthetic fertilizer that kind of can jar them awake. It's a lot nicer on their systems to just provide a really nice drink with some readily available nutrients. And if they are waking up, they can take some of them. If not, they can, the pumice, etc., will absorb these nutrients and hold them until next time. And then the next time you water, they'll become available again for the plant. So, I think that's it. This is just gonna sit and brood. You could then add, which I may do, I don't want to add the kelp in. I have actual kelp, but I don't want to add that in just because I don't want it to get too smelly. But right as I water it into the plant, I may add kelp into this solution as I water it as well. About a half strength, so to speak, dose of kelp along with this, just to throw in a few more really good minerals and nutrients. So that is step number 1 of me waking my plants up. I know, me being in northern Idaho, I'm kind of behind a lot of people, and so I feel like if I start doing this kind of wake up, it's spring, you know, kind of series, that it may be too late for a lot of people. So I do apologize for that. But we're having kind of a little bit of a late, not necessarily, it's pretty normal for us, but it's definitely not an early spring. And it's still snowing quite a few days here, so we got another probably good couple of months more before we'll have any frost-free days, so that we can count on anyways. So I am just doing things in time with the seasons and the cycles, and I just gotta wait until everything wakes up and comes around. But this is step number 1. So herbal tea for your plants. When you make your tea, that is another thing I should mention. Yeah, if you have a cup of herbal tea in the morning and you don't drink it all, just give the rest of it to your plants. The only drawback to that is if you have milk in it or something like that, which can spoil. If you have a little bit of honey or sugar, it won't really hurt your plants, but it can attract gnats or fungus gnats. But if you just drink plain unsweetened herbal tea in particular, some tea leaves and some green and black tea both doesn't hurt plants at all. But certain additives can be harmful for your plants, but as long as it's an herbal tea, they will appreciate a little drink. If you have a little bit of extra nip of tea for them. All right, I think I have sufficiently rambled on. We added in the molasses. I'm gonna move this out to the garage and add some more water. Let it sit for a few days. And I will show you what it looks like then, probably in a part 2. Yep, we'll do a part 2. So, all right, talk to you guys soon, and happy growing.